All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation on diabetes. My name is Aaron, and accompanying me on stage is my partners, Nick Hayes and Nick Kramer. Our topic for our diabetes project is microscopy. Throughout our presentation, we will have multiple quizzes with one question. Sorry, we will have one question quizzes on information that we've previously covered, so pay close attention. The person who answers correctly will receive a small prize of a diabetic-friendly candy bar. So, listen very closely. All right. So, before we begin, I'd like to raise two questions. What is microscopy, and why is it important? Well, to answer the first one, microscopy is simply the technical field of looking at objects through a microscope. And, microscopy is the technical field of using microscopes to view objects and areas of the object that cannot be seen with the naked eye.
Okay, so since the first microscope was invented, it has made a tremendous impact on all areas of the science world, from marine studies to forensic sciences. Some of the most important scientific discoveries have been uncovered using a microscope, including but definitely not limited to cancer breakthroughs, vaccines, antibiotics, and curing of many human ailments.
What is a microscope? Or what is a microscopic slide? A microscopic slide is a thin, flat piece of glass used to hold objects for examination under a microscope. What do they hold? In a classroom, you'll typically find pond water or blood cell sample slides under the microscope. But in the case of our subject, pathologists would examine islets of Langerhans, an important cell of the endocrine system. Microscopic slides are made by placing a sample of whatever it is that you're studying on a thin piece of paper, or on a thin piece of glass, and then covering it with the cover slip. Because there are so many different specimens that you can study, there are multiple ways of preparing your slide. A wet slide is used to examine living samples, just like the pond water I had mentioned earlier. Typically, these slides have a drop of fluid in the center of the slide, which holds a specimen for examination. On top of that is a cover slip, which holds the liquid down for clear examination. A dry slide commonly consists of a sample placed in the center of the glass. Depending on what kind of microscope you're using, you must cut sample accordingly. For instance, when using a low-power microscope, the size of the object only must be small enough for it to be seen clearly, since the surface is what is being examined anyways. But for a compound microscope, the sample needs to be thin and as flat as possible.
As we all know, diabetes is a disease in which your blood glucose or blood sugar levels are too high because the body's natural ability to produce the hormone insulin is impaired. In a non-diabetic body, the sugar we consume passes through our digestive system and eventually heads to our pancreas. The pancreas is important in preventing high blood glucose because of a certain cluster of cells, the islets of Langerhans. These cells are made up of four different so sorry, I think I read the wrong one. No, that's right, okay. First quiz.
Our first question is, who invented the microscope? Does anyone want to take a guess? You.
Double minute ending for 8.
Yeah, that's right.
Alright, cool. These islets are made of four different cell groups. The majority are beta cells, the insulin producers, which are shown in green. And the others alpha cells, which produce glucagon, shown in red. In a healthy body, the beta cells release the appropriate amount of insulin and return the blood glucose levels to a comfortable level. While in a diabetic body, there is little to no response from the beta cells, which leads to elevated blood pressure.
Alright. Beta cells are produced. If beta cells produce insulin, what do alpha cells produce? The red one. Alright, there.
Glycogen, or glycagon.
Alright, well that's right. I'm the next one. microscope played a big role in discovering how beta cells in the islets of langerhans work in insulin production. Beta cells reside in the islets and produce insulin when blood glucose levels are too high. In type 1 diabetics, their pancreas has a severe lack of in islets, which means no beta cells and therefore no insulin is being produced. This is when artificial insulin must be injected into the bloodstream to keep blood glucose levels at bay. Homeostasis, by definition, is the balance of all aspects of the body for ideal living conditions, such as body temperature or water levels. If just one of these things is offset by a little bit too much, it can spell disaster for the entire body. Diabetes affects homeostasis greatly by changing the amount of glucose in the bloodstream. If blood glucose levels get too high, the blood thickens and can cause fainting, heart problems, and in extreme cases, death. This is where insulin comes in. Insulin is a hormone responsible for being a key, so to speak, letting glucose enter the cells, which they then convert to energy and keep living. High blood glucose levels have huge impact on your circulatory system. Diabetics frequently have problems getting blood to their extremities. In some cases, it gets to a point where amputation is needed.
Alright, so because diabetes has such a large effect on the body, we've decided to discuss how diabetes affects each and every one of our body systems. First one is digestive. Diabetes can affect the digestive system in many ways. Some less affecting ways are linked with autonomic neuropathy, which leads to potential cause of disturbed bowel movements leading to diarrhea or constipation. One of the more major problems the digestive system may encounter is gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is a condition where continued high blood sugar levels can cause the vagus nerve to become damaged. As a result, the digestive system is corrupted, causing food to remain in the stomach for longer periods of time in an undigested state.
Okay, the next system is the excretory system, also known as the urinary system, also known as the excretory system, allows the body to remove waste or unneeded products from the body through urine. The urinary system can also help the body to remove excess glucose from the body, or from the blood. As a result, though, high blood sugar levels can present problems for the urinary system in the short term as well as in the longer term. In the short term, high blood glucose levels can promote bacterial growth, and in the long term, effects of diabetes on the urinary system can include kidney damage and damage to nerves controlling the bladder. The next system is the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system's primary role is to transport lymph, a clear fluid that contains white blood cells that help rid the body of antigens or destroy cancer cells, to lymph nodes where immune responses are activated. When individuals have type 2 diabetes, the walls of their lymphatic vessels are defective and become increasingly permeable or leaky. When this happens, lymphs and antigens are not transported to the lymph nodes. When you have type 2 diabetes, it also affects the lymph vessels because they produce nitric oxide levels that are much lower than the healthy lymphatic vessels. And the last system is the endocrine system. The endocrine system plays a huge role on the way our body functions, not only in the growth of our body and the way we act, but also about the main topic of this class, diabetes. The endocrine system is a collection of glands that produce hormones which regulate your eating habits, development and growth, reproduction, sleep pattern, and mood. The reason for this is because when hormone levels are too high or too low, they indicate a problem with the endocrine system. The most common disease of the endocrine system is diabetes. When the level of blood glucose drops or rises, insulin is released from the beta cells of your pancreas in response to it. But when you have diabetes, the endocrine system can't properly use or make that hormone.
Next is the respiratory system. If your pancreas produces little to no insulin, or if your body can't use it, alternate hormones are used to turn fat into energy. This can create high levels of acids and ketone bodies, which can ultimately lead to a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis. In the respiratory system, ketoacidosis may cause cosmal breathing or rapid breathing. Another diabetic problem in the respiratory system is if the body suffers a kidney failure. This can lead to a decreased oxygen in the blood and muscles, which cause shortness of breath.
The next system is the immune system. Your own immune system attacks the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas, destroying your body's ability to make insulin. With type 2 diabetes, your pancreas stops using insulin effectively. This causes issues with being able to pull sugar from the blood and put it into the cells for energy.
Nervous system. Diabetes can affect the nervous system by causing neuropathy. If blood glucose levels remain high for an extended amount of time, the blood vessels, which feed the nerves, can become damaged and lead to the nerves themselves being damaged. Because there are so many different nerves in the body, there are 3 categories of neuropathy. The first being diabetic peripheral neuropathy, which with peripheral neuropathy, people experience a decrease in sensation in the feet, fingers, and hands. Because of the loss of oxygen, these cells start to die out, which is why diabetics must check their feet in case of injury or infection. Second, diabetic autonomic neuropathy. This is when the nerves that control the systems we cannot consciously control are affected. This can lead to the autonomic system losing control over many of the body's functions, such as heart rate, blood pressure, through the workings of the gastrointestinal system, and sexual function. The last type of diabetic neuropathy is diabetic focal neuropathy. Focal neuropathy is when a single nerve is affected by diabetes. These nerves may be peripheral, such as the nerves in the legs, arms, or eyes. When these nerves become damaged, they may be weakened or paralyzed.
Diabetes causes poor blood circulation by thickening the blood. This means that the heart has a hard time pumping enough blood to properly supply the arms and legs with sufficient oxygen and nutrients. Diabetics often experience numbness or fuzziness in their fingers or toes due to poor circulation. The circulation is particularly bad. The affected appendage must sometimes be removed. Diabetes also has the potential to damage blood vessels in the body. High glucose levels means high blood pressure. After a while, blood vessels can stretch or burst, causing many complications.
All right, now our third question. Which body system is most often affected by diabetes? Take your time, the right answer.
Circulatory system.
That is correct.
Diabetes has 2 classifications, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 diabetics are usually people who have had diabetes from a very young age because their pancreas has a lack of beta cells and their body can't produce insulin to fuel the many cells in the body. Type 2 diabetes usually occurs later in life because of poor health choices or genetics. This is when the body can produce insulin, it just doesn't know what to do with it. The muscles, liver, and fat don't respond properly to insulin, so the glucose can't enter the cell and fuel it to keep it alive. Common indicators of diabetes include unusual thirst, cuts or bruises that heal slowly, tingling or numbness in the hands or feet, and fatigue or lack of energy.
The next thing we'll be talking about is interventions. One intervention that's important in diabetes is MNT, or medical nutrition therapy. It's important in managing existing diabetes and preventing or at least slowing the rate of development of diabetes complications. The main point of MNT is to help people with diabetes and make their life with diabetes easier. For example, if the diabetes patient's body is always overheating because there's too much glucose in his bloodstream from eating foods that he or she shouldn't have, then it can be changed and the person can feel better. Once the body can't produce enough insulin and homeostasis is not achieved, an insulin pump is needed. Insulin pumps deliver insulin to the bloodstream so your body can lower blood sugar. Okay, this is the next question. Which one of these foods will increase your risk of diabetes?
Good one. Another question after this. What percentage of Manitobans have diabetes? Madison? 7% is correct. All right, so earlier in the presentation, I mentioned two questions. What is microscopy and why is it important? Since we've already covered the first one, I'd like to discuss the second. Microscopy is important to the scientific world and daily life because it gives us a way to look at and observe the life of our world and on a microscopic level. Without microscopy, diagnosing diseases would be near to impossible, mainly because we would have no idea what the parasite or infection would even look like. Thanks to microscopy, we can study what our body tissue is made of and why diseases like diabetes can affect it. This has been Microscopy and Diabetes. Thank you for listening.